Boop-a-doo.
Do-do-do.
You are now being streamed.
Oh, no.
Error loading. Please retry. No, I'm not retrying.
Uh-oh.
Ain't got time for this, YouTube. Skype's already on my shit list.
Come on. Go to YouTube. Thank you.
Ooh, Oprah
Website.
Winfrey is live now.
Well, there we go.
I don't know. She's on Facebook. It was 5 minutes ago, and she's hugging a man. They're both wearing gray. Anyways. It's just
Go on.
It's just the screenshot, but anyways.
Go on, Oprah. Bless you.
Ooh, thank goodness for a muted mic. Would have blown everybody's ears out on that.
Okay, there's that. Okay, cool. There, that. I'm like charging my phone here. I'm gonna have to throw you down here so you're not so bad. There we go. So, yeah. Yay. It's been a good weekend. Busy, but good.
Mine's just been weird.
Mm.
Apparently, a new football league has started up as of yesterday.
Okay.
In addition to the NFL, we've got the AAF, the Alliance of American Football.
Are they trying to make fetch happen again? Is that what's going on? Sorry, I should have said catch.
Are you thinking of the original like XFL thing?
I don't know. I think there's been 3 or 4 different attempts at creating a new like alternative NFL league, and it never works out, and people lose their shirts and blah blah blah.
Yeah, that's what happened with XFL, and apparently the people who did XFL is thinking about reviving that, but then a different group is doing the AAF, which is kind of supposed to be almost like a minor professional league, where it kind of gives people who haven't gotten like full like play in the NFL. So because some of them were still drafted into teams, but they were like on the practice team or something, so they never actually got like on the actual field for an actual game or anything.
Interesting.
They've got some former professional or NFL coaches in. So I wouldn't say they're necessarily trying to make fetch happen, but it is kind of a
thing.
It's kind of like a minor league, you could say. You know, somebody playing in here may end up being, after seeing all their play in the AAF, maybe like might get signed to actually play on an NFL team. So
maybe.
So from the way they've made it sound, it sounds like they're actually kind of encouraging that sort of thing. So
we'll see.
So if somebody wants to get out of the AAF and go to the NFL and actually play, great. They can do that.
Maybe.
So. And there's no kickoffs or single extra points. You always have to do a 2-point conversion.
Okay.
Yay, let's change the rules everybody knows so they can get pissed off. All right.
They didn't really change it much. They just kind of like... They made it just a little bit different.
Just a little bit different. Again, just a little bit different.
Otherwise, the play is pretty much the same. Otherwise.
Speaking of just a little bit different, are we ready to start our show?
I think so.
Everyone says.
Oh, I'm sorry. That the whole point of getting up this early on a Sunday morning was to record the show.
Other way.
I was just. So.
It's okay.
I understand. I'm the most awake of the three of us apparently this morning. So,
Which is
not quite.
usually.
I got my coffee.
I got my coffee too, but that doesn't mean just because you got your coffee doesn't mean you're awake, bitch. I mean,
Your tone seems
how
very
long does it
right now.
How long does it take to actually wake up while drinking the coffee? How far into the coffee have you gotten? You know, that sort of thing.
About halfway.
wow.
What?
Anyway,
You're welcome.
You're just like all the shade being thrown.
oh, all right.
All right. What day is today?
This thing.
February 10th.
February 10th. 498. Almost 500 bitches.
Of course.
All right. I suppose I need to transition to this, put this over here, so I'm ready for that. All right. Sound check.
Nope.
Jesus Christ. Come on, Sky. Oh, Jesus. Why does he say sound sharing stop due to an unexpected error? See, this is why I just want to share sound, not share my screen. I bet it would be fine. All right, let's try this again. All right, that time it didn't say that it. All right, bitches, you're just gonna have to wing it.
Did you update your Skype? Because I had to 3 times
no
today.
Updates. There were no updates.
Every time I use it.
But there's no updates. Why? Because I make sure that it's updated. Jeez, we're just catty today.
It's gonna be a fun episode.
All right. Well, I'm just gonna do this without, so you can kind of like at least see it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we'll just kind of work that way.
Cool.
Skype, just put in a sound sharing with sound sharing. I can speak without having to share your screen.
That would be great.
That would be like nice and handy. Oh, this also means you won't be able to hear the thing.
I'm putting the translation into text for
Cool.
Damon.
All right.
Okay.
Here we go.
Transcript, sorry.
Got it.
Close enough. We knew what you meant. All right. And in a 3, and a 2, and a 1. It's February 10th, 2019. I'm Jeff.
Who's your bear? That's right. I am your bear.
I'm Damon.
I don't brew the tea, I just serve it.
And that makes me Gary.
I don't brew the tea, I just serve it.
Wrong button.
Don't hurt nobody with your bad self.
Welcome to Comes Out Loud, the Bear Podcast of Indeterminate Length, episode number 498, and I'm tired.
Yes, you are.
Your caffeine has failed you.
The caffeine
Actually,
hasn't kicked in yet, I don't think.
We're working on it.
something like that. You know,
We're trying.
we get
This morning.
So, to start things off, we want to start with something which maybe a little tad bit time sensitive. I'm not sure, but we got a voicemail, and
Yay!
it is somebody asking for ours and our audience assistance.
Hey Gary, this is Edward, leaving my message that you so wonderfully asked me to do. So, as you know, I am getting my PhD at Widener University in Human Sexuality Studies. And for my research class, we are doing a group research project where we are taking the topic of pornography and sexuality and doing a descriptive statistics analysis on various concepts and testing those. So concepts like the impact of sexual orientation, gender, relationship status, types of porn watching, prep usage, things like that. So we're just asking as many people as possible to take this 10 to 15 minute survey that is completely anonymous, and you would be really helping us out so that we can get experience with analyzing data. So I hope that is helpful, and I will talk to you soon. Okay, bye.
So, one of my favorite things about the transcript of this was the Google censored the word porn, but not pornography. I find that kind of humorous.
Apparently, it's kind of tripped by 4-letter words.
Apparently.
Just to make it easier on the rest of you guys, one thing wasn't directly mentioned, the email or the voicemail, was the link to the survey. We got it. So if you go to cubsoutloud.com, you can, and I think we can actually put it in the description box of the video. So if you watch us on YouTube versus going to the website, should be downstairs.
Down there. Down below. Click the linky below.
Mm-hmm. So, are you guys gonna like pop over there afterwards and check it out?
Yeah. So, just so everybody knows, Ed had reached out to me. Ed was actually a prior guest of ours on COL498. The show was The Decline of Gay Bars, which was a really interesting discussion. Ed had done some research about how gay bars have impacted the community. We talked in that episode, if I recall correctly, about the use of technology and the internet, how it kind of played into stuff. And so Ed is a friend of mine. He's actually done a couple of workshops at my event regards to like sexuality and self-image and that kind of stuff. And he has co-presented with Mr. Gabriel Majors, the world's greatest kisser, who has been in our show as well. So
still need to test that out, but that's not altogether.
So Ed reached out to me and was kind of like, "Hey, I'm working on the survey. Could you help? Kind of put the information out." And that wasn't directly about the podcast. And then I said to him, "Well, if you'd like, we could try to talk about it before the end of the month when we normally would get to that stuff, because I still don't know what the time frame is." So thank you both for obliging. Ed's working on this this anonymous survey about porn and sexuality. So it's about 10 to 15 minutes. It's online. There is no compensation. So I apologize for those of you that like to do surveys and get like Starbucks gift cards or Amazon gift cards. Whatever. They be whole PhD students who ain't got no budget. So there's that.
It's all good.
Yeah. But
you're doing this out of the kindness of your heart to help educate people.
Yeah, and actually, I'm really proud of it that he's pursuing something. It's something I kind of thought about in the past about going on for higher education, like for a master's or a PhD about human sexuality. But that's partially because I'm very intrigued by people's like proclivities, I guess, or the things that turn their crank or whatever. So yeah, it's
You
awesome.
like turning people's crank?
That too. So. But we wanted to start the episode.
Just trying to be clear.
Could one of you possibly copy paste the survey link into the live chat, just in case folks over there want to check it out? They could do it while watching and listening to us today.
Yeah.
I got
Help out one of our past guests and friends.
Yay! So yeah, like you said, it's like 10 to 15 minutes. It shouldn't take very long.
All right. And with that, I think we use this. Or not? Why is it not playing? Oh, somebody must have moved the file. Anyways, it's time for another one of these. It's another time for another Bear. The Bear Experience Action Readiness Protocol. I added the protocol part. It's actually just Bear Action Experience.
So it's BERP.
BERP.
Or it's the Bear Protocol. The Bear Experience Action Readiness. So you just use the initialism of Bear and then just add on the word protocol.
Yeah.
So Gary,
I think BERP is kind of funny, but like that's totally now an inside joke that no one will ever get. So
that's all right. BERP. Excuse me.
That's what he said when he was done.
Ooh.
Wow.
What? I'm just saying. Sometimes a little air gets trapped and it has to escape the body. Okay.
I know, but the pop sound that I believe
I made a pop sound.
Was like, pop. Wow.
Apparently, Damon is well acquainted with that. So,
no comment.
Oh.
Well, if he ever hears that, he would go. Oh!
Shows how much more true that statement was. Oh! Now you put the fan up because I called it out. Whatever.
Anywho,
so today's topic is sort of thanks to Damon. We were discussing about upcoming shows, and he is going to be attending North American Bear Weekend, also known as NAB. Mm-hmm. So he's going to be inserting himself into KY, possibly further away.
Again.
I mean, it's kind of weird saying inserting yourself into KY or inserting with KY would be more.
6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other.
Yeah, that's where it gets kind of like it's like unless
KY.
Unless it's like Kennedy Young, I don't know, something like that. Ken Young.
We have been off the rails.
Wow.
Yep.
Because when I think of KY, I think lube, and you don't really insert into lube. That's
what you use to insert. Yes.
If it's pre-lubed rather well. Anyways.
Then okay.
So typically right before a bear run, if some of us are going to be attending, we started this a year ago, 2 years ago.
Something along those lines.
As another series, because if there's anything that COL does a lot of, it's series of different things. So the concept behind the Bear series, the Bear Experience Action Readiness, is to talk about things that could help individuals who are going to an event think about or consider, whether they've been going for years, just a couple of times, or, as today's topic is going to be, their very first time.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about popping cherries, kids.
Back virgin. Hey.
That's true. There's a sound clip we could have had ready. And then, of course, YouTube would have had a conniption because immediately Madonna would have been like, "Excuse you, bitch."
I don't know. I think I like our version better.
That's true.
I do too.
All right, so today's focus is on experience as a virgin at a bear event or a run. And I thought we'd talk about some of our experiences, but we also have some feedback on that. Damon? What do you say?
I was just going to say, so it's very interesting to me how there are still potentially virgin experiences. You can still go to different runs and that be your first time there. And it could be a totally different experience. So even though you're a seasoned veteran of the bear run scene, as it were, or bear event scene, by all means, certain events could potentially be your first time. For example, I just went to Mal back in January for the first time, and that was my first time going to that event, and it is a totally different experience than, say, going to my local tri-state leather event weekend. It's definitely that one. So you're going to have to deal with a different place, a different scene, a different environment in some ways. So even though you may have been to events in the past, this can potentially be just going to an event for the first time.
Cool. So I think you bring up a good point, Damon, in regards to that you went to MAL in January, Mid-Atlantic Leather, for those that don't know. You've been to other leather events in the past. Outside of Claw, as a question just for me, have you been to other bear or leather events? Leather
technically, it's hard to kind of to me, I've been to contests, and sometimes contests contribute to the whole weekend. Right. I've ones in Columbus, where they kind of make a weekend of the contest in and of itself. Okay. A la like Mal, because Mal is technically a contest, but it also is a weekend. So you can add things to it. You have vendors, you have classes, you have education, you have actual events that are part of the run or event in and of itself. So there's a contest. Sometimes there's a for leather folks, there's a puppy mash or a kink you. There are all these kind of things that kind of roll into it. To me, that kind of make the weekend or event kind of part of it.
Right. So. And each one is set up differently. Like Claw, Cleveland Leather Annual Weekend is notably a education-based weekend. So it's not about having a contest and, contestants and judges and all the rest of that kind of jazz. It's more heavily focused on having education opportunities and, charity work that can be done. Where MAL, like you said, is a contest. It's part of this is the wrong terminology, but I call it a feeder system. So if you have previously titled, I think that may be part of the requirements to compete at MAL. And then if you win at Mid-Atlantic Leather, then you have a greater opportunity to move on from regional to, I think, national.
And just to clarify, by feeder, you mean FEEDER, not FEADR.
Correct.
Right. That's why I was like, it's probably not the right way to phrase it, but basically,
no, it works because you're taking those people who won other titles and you're feeding them into this thing.
Yes. So, even though we are considered a bear podcast for the community in one aspect, obviously there's a lot of crossover, and I think some of the things we're going to talk about today could be used in any situation.
I agree. So Gary, as our seasoned member, yes, that is totally. But still, what was your first experience like?
Was that a shade flash?
That was totally a shade flash.
Don't look, Ethel.
That was the fastest ever shade fan I have ever seen. It was just like whoosh whoosh. Anyway,
yeah.
Sorry.
So, what experience are you asking about, David? I guess is the more accurate.
Your first like, what about your first time at a run? Like, when was yours, or what was yours like?
Well, mine was very different and weird, because I hosted it.
Ah,
Honestly,
of course.
my first bear event that I went to was a potluck, but the first bear run that I actually attended was the one that I ended up putting on and hosting,
Ah.
unintentionally. Like when I started Drenched Fur with John Riley, like it wasn't meant to be a run. It was meant to be an afternoon. Then it turned into a whole day. Then it was kind of multiple days. All in the very first year, it kind of grew on us, and then John recognized, bless him very much, and he said, "This is turning into a run. I'm out." Like, and to clarify, it's not that John was upset or angry, or he just saw the writing on the wall and was like, "I just wanted to have a fun afternoon, and now this is kind of like blowing up into a thing, and there's nothing wrong with that. I just don't want to be in charge of that." Like that was his vision, and I was like, and I'll admit it, it was what 14, 15 years ago, and I was like, at first I was like, what? I was like, whatever. Like I was kind of upset with him because I just didn't get it at the time. And I was like turning 30. Like that. So anyways, when it came to the second year, I was like, fine, I'll like run it and take over and this and that. And because of my background with my parents and having been a hobbyist with them and some stuff and going to conventions pretty much since I was like 5, all the way until I went into college. I had many years of going to a multi-day event hosted in a hotel that included tours, and it was more trade show kind of swap meet stuff, but I had the gist of it. So I just kind of duplicated that concept, and then I started going to bear events, but it was a very reverse kind of path for me.
Yeah,
that was a challenge in and of itself, because then when I went to other bear runs, it seems that whoever was putting on the event was told by people that I was there. And I don't want to say that bear runs are territorial, but I think the personalities of the individuals who work on them or run them can affect that. And so over the years, I've been aware of the fact that people talk about runs like in comparison, which is perfectly fine, but sometimes that's counterproductive, because it's like they're trying to say like this one's better than this or blah blah blah. And that may be true, but that's not the point of putting on an event to try to. There's no award. There's no Olympic bear runs or bear. You know what I mean? So
let's actually step into that comparison thing, because it's one thing about bear runs, and having a comparison is great because, like, as a analogy, let's say you want to get a new iPhone. There's a reason why I'm using iPhones, okay? So all you Android people, step away for a second, or just stick with me. So if you go to Apple's website, they have an option to compare iPhones, and it gives you a chart. These have these features, these have these features, and then you can go things like, okay, the iPhone 6S has, or 10S has these features. I don't need this one, this one, and this one. But all these other features that I do need is also on the 10R, so which is cheaper, so I might as well get that. So it's really comparing bear runs is a good thing, can be a good thing if you look at it in the context of what's the differences between them, or what's the similarities to tell what is the type of bear run that you want to go to. So or run, I should say. Let's keep it in more general context, because we're also saying leather events, which is fine.
Right.
And like, I think we've had there have been mentioned, like, some people just prefer just going to the leather ones. They don't really enjoy bear runs as much because of one thing or another. It's not that a bear one run is necessarily better than the other. It's different and has what you want to experience at the run. So comparing can be good, but you got to look at it more of not whether one is better than the other, just one you prefer over the other because of what they offer.
Right. Look at them objectively. essentially.
Well, you still have to have some objectively. You just need to say it's not necessarily that one is better than the other. It's just they're different.
Exactly.
In different ways.
Well, and you could use the word better. It's just better for you.
Yes.
Like on a personal
Yeah, I
scale.
suppose,
It's not so much about better overall for the whole community. So as an example, and I know we're kind of getting off topic, we'll swing back around. Like Western Exposure, I think is a really well-run event from everything I've seen in terms of like publicity and like the promotions and some like testimonials from people that I know that have attended it. But notably, it's a different event. Like, while it is for the bear chub community in a way, it's not explicitly marketed that way, but it's also notably a clothing optional event that very much is on the no clothing side of things, because it's at a clothing optional like resort / campground in Palm Springs. So that's something to take into account. And for some people, that may be a better event to go to because they love being naked and around naked individuals, and it doesn't necessarily have to be about sex. So that might appeal to them. And that's something I think you want to take account of when you go to your very first event is this the type of event that I want to go to?
Exactly.
Do I think I will enjoy it, as opposed to, well, I feel obligated to go to this because everyone says I should go to it.
Yeah. Agree. And that's like, I was going to kind of bring back that, like, every event in and of itself is different. Like what Jeff is saying is, there are some factors that are common in most bear runs or leather events or what have you. You know, you're always going to, for most of them, you're going to have some kind of vendor area. For most of them, you're going to have events that are either at the hotel, maybe at a bar. They're going to be based on maybe a theme. You know, sometimes, like, if you have a Vegas theme, you're going to have, like, here's some gambling areas, here's some gambling aspects of it. Or we're going to go to a bar and we're going to have, like, a bar night out at the local bar, local gay bear leather whatever bar, you know. So those are kind of like commonalities of something. So it'll be up to you, kind of like, oh, well, you know, hey, I don't know if I necessarily want to go to that, or this is not really my thing, or, oh, this is so my thing, like I really want to do it. Like the whole Western Exposure thing is a perfect example of that, where while it may be considered a bear or, you know, run in and of itself, there's a part of it that if you're not necessarily comfortable, maybe you don't go to that one for your first time.
Right. And I think selecting the event to go to for your first time can be a little stressful, and it shouldn't be, but we tend to do that to ourselves. Like, I was stressed out going to my very first bear event, which was just merely a potluck, which for some people might seem like kind of extreme. Like, what the heck is there to be worried about with a potluck? Well, you weren't inside my head. You weren't you weren't a young 20-something who was worried about being judged because of the food that he brought, like, and whether or not, like, he was walking into a pack of wolves kind of scenario. Like, because I didn't know anybody that I was gonna go to this thing. I honestly was going completely with no, like, connections. The best thing was that I had emailed the host to find directions, and they said that I was welcome to come, and they gave me directions and said they were looking forward to it, you know, being the first time to attend that. And that initial communication was huge, because I was like, okay, at least I feel one person is kind of welcome me.
Yeah. I will say, for me, the best advice I can give to someone who's going to an event for the first time is try to stay close to home if you can. And I'm going to kind of explain that here in a minute. My first event, Bear event, was actually here in Cincinnati, and it was Fergasm. We had a run. We don't so much anymore, but we had a local run, and I happened to be I was here in town, and some friends of mine were like, we're going over to it was really the after hours of the event. So it was like, okay, so, you know, we're going to go. Like, I was out at the bars, and I knew it was there. I knew it was happening, but I was local, and I didn't really think anything like, oh, like, I need to buy a ticket and I need to do all this and, you know, go. And I was like, okay, well, let's try the after hours, because friends of mine were planning on going. So I went with them, paid the little ticket, got some drink, you know, hung out, other things happened, because it was an after hours. If you don't know what after hours sometimes means. So look at you, Gary. Anyway, but but for me, the thing I'm going to say is, hey, if this wasn't really my thing, or if I wasn't really like, oh, hey, this is a little too much or a little overwhelming, I could then tap out and be like, oh, I'm just going to grab a cab and go home, as opposed to traveling across country or several miles, to go to an event. And if you then realize, oh, hey, this is maybe a little much, maybe you can have your hotel room to escape to, but you're kind of still there at the event.
Right.
So that's my only advice is because if it becomes too much, there's a way to.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you bring up a good point. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it can be overwhelming for individuals. You can be overly stimulated. And by that, I mean, lots of people, lots of sound, lots of things happening, especially if it's a larger attended event. If it's smaller scale, that may not be necessarily the same thing. Even going out for a bar night, if the bar is popular or that particular night is popular or the theme, whatever's happening, if there's entertainment, there's also many factors that can contribute as to why attendance is the way it is. And so for me personally, when I go to a bar, I prefer a bar to be kind of medium on the attendance level. I don't want it to be, crickets chirping kind of dead and there's no one around, because it's, not necessarily very exciting. But on the other hand, I'm not a big fan of being packed into a place where it's nuts to butts and I have to push my way through a crowd of people. That's just not my thing. So you kind of won't know that necessarily unless you do some research ahead of time. And even then, you may not fully be able to gauge popularity. There's a lot of things that could come into play, whether it be the weather or some other stuff. So I agree with you, Damon. That concept of going to one that's close to home gives you that option to leave or go back home if it's kind of nearby, even if you only drove yourself an hour or two or.
Yeah. And I know it, and Owen mentioned in the chat, his the one would be kind of far from him, and I want to just kind of say that sometimes that may be the case. So that's kind of where you need to make a decision for yourself. Do you want to go that far? I mean, for me personally, as a social-ish butterfly as I am, whore, I will say what I am. Shut up. Anyway, I could tend to be okay in most situations, in most settings, but there does for me even come a point where it's okay, I can't anymore. I can't process. There's far too many people. There's just too much going on. And that was honestly, there was a point at Mal where there were just so many people and I didn't have anything to do. And while AJ was there with me, that was kind of it. While I knew certain people there and blah, 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 there was a point where the hotel is full. And there's all these people, there's all this noise, there's all the, everything that's kind of going on. And it can be I need to take a break. And in that situation, a break for me meant leaving.
Right.
Because there was no place to really go anymore.
And that's important that you know that about yourself as an individual. If you attend event, whether you've been attending events, for a little bit of time, long time, or it's your very first one, know yourself well enough, I hope, that you can say, I don't feel comfortable anymore. I need some time to myself, whatever that may be. I know when we were at MAL a year ago, we went to Starbucks at one point, and I can't remember if that was at the start of the day, maybe, but at least the location that it's at, there's places to go to. So if the, say the host hotel is full of people and it's just and some people's opinions, hey, it's happening, there's just stuff going on all over the place. It may be too much for other people. So if there's a nearby store, coffee shop, library branch, I don't know, something that you can easily get to by Lyft, Uber, you can walk, whatever. it gives you a little bit of an escape. And I think it's important to know when you go to like your first event. And so for this particular episode, we asked like for some questions and some feedback, and this kind of ties in what we're talking about. Baron had said in response to our quest, my first big event was GLLA, which is Great Lakes Leather Alliance. And I really didn't know what to expect. It was exciting yet terrifying all at once. I guess what I wish I had known is that people are usually very warm and welcoming, and if you put yourself out there, you'll usually find a new friend or five.
Yeah.
I think
Aaron. I know.
I think he brings up a good point that we've talked about this, I think, a number of times in different ways on the podcast in the past, is attending an event is like a dance. It's like communicating, and you have to be a willing participant. People are not necessarily excited or enjoy a one-way conversation. And it's the same thing when you're at an event. If you're an individual who feels uncomfortable and is shy and introverted, there's nothing wrong with that. But I hope that you recognize that your decisions, your actions are your responsibility. And that is to say, later, if you complain that, or post a comment or are critical of the fact that nobody approached you and nobody hung out and you didn't have any fun, that's perfectly fine to have that viewpoint, but also recognize that you have to have a little bit of ownership to that. Is it possible that you went to an event and everyone was an absolute bunch of snobs? Sure. I find that to be rare, though, because more often than not, there are other individuals like yourself that are kind of perhaps quiet and, withdrawn. And sometimes I see that they find each other. Like, it's not matchmaking, but they kind of recognize. And so one of the things that's happened in the past decade in the bear community that kind of cracks me up is people wearing shirts with shit on them that say things. Imagine that. And it becomes this calling card. So you're like, oh, you're wearing that thing from Pokemon. Like, that's pretty cool. I play Pokemon. Or, I recognize the Majora's Mask, I think, from Legend of Zelda, if I got that right.
Yep.
I'm saying shit I don't know nothing about.
I'd like your Steven Universe shirt.
Exactly.
I like always big pink shirt, or your, what is it? Yeah. Your big pink shirt with the star and the jewel on it. Can I rub your belly? That could be a lead in line. Anyways.
Yeah.
Technically, it's red with a yellow star.
I could
really see a jewel on it.
So I think like that could be a way that, you could potentially connect with another person who maybe isn't the life of the party and draws all the attention. And one of the things,
if you see another wallflower, go over to the other wallflower, be wallflowers together, and you may not be as wallflowery.
That's true.
Yeah.
It help make the wallflower garden grow.
Like what I get is part of what I get from Baron's comment is kind of like there are, like, most of the time, and I will just say this, there are usually plenty of people at events that are friendly in some capacity. Like, they're not going to be like overly like aggressively friendly, which can be kind of like put offish, but they may just be like, oh, hey, welcoming, warm, inviting. That's the word I'm looking for, without like, without a alternative agenda. I'll put that caveat on it because to me, that's often always the case. Sometimes there's just people that just want people to be like, how are you enjoying yourself? I hope that you're having fun at the weekend, and it's going to be on the flip of that, as someone mentioned, is like, you kind of have to also take ownership of yourself. If this is your first event and you're not necessarily going, like you're not going with anyone or friends like that, and you're like totally new to everything, or this is a totally different type of country or whatever. If that's something that you're kind of experiencing, you're going to have to like be open to letting like people in, as it were. Like, hey, like here's someone to talk to, or maybe I can go talk to these people, and I hate using it as a potential crutch, but it can be. Like Growler and like the Bear like apps and chats and stuff can be potentially like talk with somebody that's maybe also already there, because you can tell they're there. 0.0 miles is usually a good indication that they're nearby. And like just kind of talk to somebody, and if you can't talk in person, like at least right at first, then But believe it or not, like the apps and stuff can be a little kind of like mini icebreaker to kind of get some stuff out there, and but move on from there. Like the events could be social; they're meant to be social. So, like if you talk with someone on this app, like, hey, let's go to the dance together. Oh, there's a pool party coming up in like an hour. Like, why don't we just hit? Why don't I meet you there? Or we're about to have dinner at the event, like in the space. Like I can set it to like sacred space for you. Kind of just
Right.
Every little bit kind of helps, and it kind of then you have someone for sure, hopefully, that you can talk to.
In other words, see if you can find a wingman.
Well, I mean, that is one aspect of it. I mean, your personality is a huge factor into your experience, no matter where you go in life, no matter what you do. So your first time at any event, what you bring to the table in a way is going to be part of what your experience is going to be like. And also recognize that other people have their own lives that are going on and the things that they bring. So it's great that there are people that are welcoming and put themselves out there and, will give you, all the hugs and belly rubs and that kind of stuff upon arrival. On the counterbalance of that, there are also people who are not necessarily as open and as warm, and that is not necessarily an indication of how they feel about you personally, because they probably don't even know you. And they may have their own stuff that they're dealing with internally. They may have their own, anxiety and other stuff that's taking place that is being perceived as standoffish or rude, when in fact maybe they just have resting bitch face. And and that's a thing, and or they seem kind of standoffish or they're very busy. It doesn't mean that they're disregarding you or that you have less worth. It's just how the moment is playing out. And I think we all internalize a lot of things based on what we see around us. Because I know that I've felt that way. The first couple of events that I went to, when I saw individuals that were kind of like the life of the party, or were kind of like the flame that everybody was drawn to, I was a little jealous of that and kind of enamored, and then at the same time scared, because I didn't know what it was like to be that, like to have people be attracted to you and like want to hang around you, and it's not that this person was kind of cultivating a crowd. It's just that they have a really nice personality. They make people feel good. They tell jokes. They're sexy. I mean, there's different factors that kind of play into that. And I had to learn over years and, different experiences, like this is like that whole moment was really about me and not so much about them. Like I was projecting stuff, not on them, like saying stuff to them, but, I had to recognize, like in this moment I'm feeling anxious or, bothered or whatever. And then I realized like, well, it's because I'm comparing myself to them. And that's really not fair because I'm not them. And in that case. So, yeah, I mean, I think Baron brings up a really good point of, it can be exciting and terrifying all at the same time to go for the first time to an event, no matter what type it is, even if it's just like a bar function.
Yeah. And I think it's always good to have like I mean, Jeff was mentioning wingman. Wingman to me is kind of I'll give it a general term. Like there's also like you have a friend or a partner that you're going there together. It can be nice in a sense, in some ways, to have someone else there that you know. However, don't necessarily rely solely on that person or persons,
Yeah, but a wingman's there for support.
Mm-hmm.
So if you the wingman should recognize, hey, if you're being a wallflower, they can start pulling you away from the wall and getting you into something, and then
well, it's kind of funny.
And I'm still talking. And then get you into something, and maybe at some point while they've introduced the wallflower to other people, they may step away and do their own thing while the wallflower is now no longer on the wall and is blooming in amongst other people. So just because you're a wing, if you're one of those more socially active people, Like if you're Damon to me, Damon could say, notice that I'm checking out this guy, brings me over, introduces me, we start having a conversation, then he goes off and looks at it, talks to some other people, and I'm having this discussion and this kind of like
And then I
that
disappear.
support there, right?
Well, right. I don't think there's anything wrong with what you're saying, Jeff. What I wanted to say is be aware of who you, I guess, are putting in the wingman role. In a way, you're kind of making them your handler, and there's nothing wrong with that. Just be aware of whether or not they have the capacity to do that. And I say that only because I've seen way too many times where like they go out with a friend and the friend has the best of intentions, but the friend is maybe not that reliable. So the friend unintentionally or accidentally abandons the person who's never been to the event because they're off busy being a whore. Or they may introduce you to someone else and then completely ghost on you because they're like, there, I did my part. Like you all do the thing now. Have fun. Bye. Like,
and then you realize with like 2 minutes, like this guy that I've been introduced to, we're not going to have anything in common, and I need a way out of this conversation somehow. like this is really getting awkward.
I gotta go. I'm gonna go back with my friend over there, or hey, I wonder where someone says, I'll see you later.
right.
Oh, look at the time. I need to I just need to go.
First, I need to buy a watch. Then I gotta.
Like, did you hear that? Oh, that was the alarm on my
I'm gonna
phone.
go get a drink.
Right. Nope. I don't need you to buy me a drink. Appreciate it very much. Thanks.
It's just I'm gonna go get a drink. Notice I didn't say I'll be right back. Just said I'm gonna go get a drink.
True.
So another kind of virgin rule kind of thing is you can always find an out. Like you can almost always find an out.
Yes.
And I need to clarify. I don't want to clarify it per se, but you can always find a way out. Like we gave these little things that's kind of been funny, but clearly, if you are not enjoying this moment or this person or this environment that you're in, you can pause and step out, step away, leave if you need to. Especially if things are getting too uncomfortable. We've talked about that earlier, but also if this isn't working, like this isn't compatible, like a conversation, a dance, a situation in a pool, like you're kind of hanging out and someone kind of walks, is swimming up to you and like whatever, all of these kind of things, there's almost always going to be a way out. So don't feel bad if you have to decline.
Right.
Okay to decline.
It's never wrong to put yourself first. Like that's what we should always be doing, but we don't necessarily. So, for instance, like in the example that Damon's giving, let's say that's a pool social or pool party, and you're there and you're minding your own business, and this guy comes over and tries to strike up a conversation. There's nothing wrong with that, but maybe he's more aggressive than you care for, or he's the appropriate amount of aggressive, but now you feel like uncomfortable because it's in public, and maybe he's like 6'4" and built like a linebacker and is a ginger and noticeably has like a visible penis line in his Speedos and is like pushing all your buttons, and he puts his arms on either side of you and kind of braces you and like gives you all the, Dom top daddy vibes that you want in the world. You can still feel uncomfortable in that moment, and there's nothing wrong with that. What we're saying is that you need to be able to express that in some way.
That was a bad analogy for me.
And
a bad analogy for all of us.
So
that was more of a yes, and if anything, it would be more of like sneak under the arm, grab it, and start moving all the way out to some place that's more public.
But not everyone will necessarily take that moment. Like you might actually kind of have a little panic.
I know.
Oh my God, this is really happening, and I can't believe it, and I'm freaking out, and this can't be right.
Amongst these people, no, it's a bad analogy.
So my point of the analogy is like it could really be something that you want and you're still uncomfortable with it. There's nothing wrong with that. And the key piece is to put yourself first. And if you're let's say that you're stricken with enough panic or discomfort or anxiety in the moment that where Jeff had talked about like the concept of a friend, a wingman, a partner, and why I said they're in a way we're kind of talking about like a handler is that if they can kind of watch out for you and determine if they know you well enough, they can see like the nonverbal cues that are going on about how you're feeling, that they're able to kind of come over and intercede, because while this may be happening in this moment and perhaps it's really something that you desire, this other individual might know that you're like about to break, like you're not actually okay in this moment, and kind of check in on you and give you the opportunity for an out to like breathe and get recentered and then go back and talk to this person that started striking you up or whatever that may be. I think it's important that we remember to put ourselves first and how to communicate that. Yeah. And I think that that's very difficult, especially when many of us, I feel, do not openly admit and talk about our own personal issues in terms of like our self-image and anxiety and those things that come along with that. And it's important that we try to own that and recognize it. And I don't mean own it like you just blurt it out and tell someone when you first meet them and be like, I'm a ball of nerves, I have all these problems. Like, yeah, you can just,
I mean, there's more subtle ways to say the exact same thing. Like, making me a little bit nervous. Or something like that. I like what Owen says here in the chat. Wallflowers unite with non-wallflowers, because wallflowers most likely not mingle with the non-wallflowers without an introduction of pollination. Pollinate. It could be sexual or not.
Yeah. Agree. And yeah, totally agree with that. I think like
so you need to take the pollen from the demon to the pistol.
Anyways, Damon, you were saying.
No, that's funny. Yeah. I think it's always going to be, if you're going to an event and this is your first time, like, do yourself a mental favor and truly gauge what you may want. Like honestly, like, what do you want out of the event? What do you want out of the run? What do you want out of this pool party?
This is where we get into that comparison chart thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, so it's knowing yourself enough to know what is your interest. Like, especially if you go to something that has a bunch of options. Like, let's say it's not necessarily a whole weekend, but it's just a day. And so there's a couple of different things that are happening. Like maybe because of work, you can't go for all 3-4 days. You can only go for like Saturday, let's say. Pick amongst the things that you're kind of interested in. Like one of the key rules is you don't have to do everything or everyone. Just saying. So, figure out what it is that is kind of calling to you or is of interest to you so that you feel that you're going to be okay with what that is, and recognize that you don't even have to do everything that you're initially interested in. Like, let's say you're not a big person on going in a pool. Maybe you're uncomfortable being in a swimsuit without a shirt on. Then you can plan to go in the pool, but you don't have to go in the pool. Like, you can actually just sit at a table and soak up some rays, or maybe apply, suntan lotion, or sunblock to other individuals. You don't necessarily have to fully participate. Maybe you prefer to eat. And so, you're, not grazing, but, like you enjoy some of the food that, is available, and maybe that's more kind of where your wheelhouse is. So you help clean up a little bit as things go along, as people bring stuff, if you're more of a person who likes to be a busybody, you could ask the host, is there anything that they need help with? Like, volunteer your time so that you feel that you're actually doing something while participating.
Yeah.
And that could be incredibly helpful on both sides, because the people that are trying to make it happen probably need the help in some way, shape, or form. Even though they might happen to turn you down. And that isn't a personal thing.
That maybe they just want to do it themselves.
Right. They might have control issues, and so they find it difficult to accept help when people offer it. And so you have to, kind of balance that in some ways.
Not that you're pointing anybody out.
Nope, wasn't. Not at all. So, but Yeah, I mean, I realize that we're kind of throwing a lot out there for people to pick amongst, and I just want individuals to know that it's really your decision the entire way, from not only choosing to go, but your interaction, when to leave, how far to travel. If you have someone that's there that's, kind of your uh, assist or your plus one, and that all of that can be factors in your attending. Um, I want to talk about one of our former multi-episode guests, Joshua from Skeleton Crew, the web series, responded, and he said, I have never been to an event. From what I see and hear, they are very cliquey, and a fear I have is I would end up spending the time mostly by myself or just with the people I attend with, which seems to defeat the purpose of attending these events. So there's a couple of things in there, like I want to point out, like A, we'll talk about clicky. B, we've already kind of talked about fear, and but I want to also address like attending, like spending time by yourself versus spending time with people, and if that defeats going. So the clicky thing. I want to say this, and this is my own personal viewpoint for the record. It doesn't matter where you go, what you do. If you look, you can find people being cliquey or sticking into groups. They are not necessarily intending to be that way. Sometimes pockets of people are a group unto themselves because they have some commonality. Maybe they know each other because they live in the same area, but don't see each other all that often. So you just happen to be observing them kind of as like a group of individuals, but you may not know currently that they live in another city, not the current one of where the event is taking place. And they don't see each other that much, so that's kind of why they're hanging out. Or maybe they all know each other from an online like social app or website and are a part of a group in and of that itself. Maybe they just, got done with a gaming session at the event and had a good time and they're still hanging out. There's just so many reasons as to why a group of individuals may hang out together, and you won't know any of that. And it may seem that a group is being cliquey because they're, for lack of a better term, self-absorbed. And I don't mean that in a rude way. I mean that that they're unaware of their own behavior, that they're talking in amongst themselves, and maybe they're longtime good friends. They've known each other for 10, 20 years, and they don't intend to be anti, open to new individuals or other individuals. They're just talking amongst themselves. And I bring all this up because, having put on an event for a very long time, been active in clubs and seeing that, I've heard this word used many, many times. And the truth is, 9 times out of 10 or 9.5 times out of 10, they are not intentionally being cliquey. They are not intentionally being mean girls. It's not Wednesday. They're not wearing pink. Like, this is not about like the A-list bears and that kind of crap. It's mostly about that they're just happen to be friends with each other and they know each other well. And they're not sensing their own decisions or actions that kind of make them their own pocket or their own group. And it's difficult for them to know that if they can't see it.
Kind of like they're unintentionally walling themselves into just their group, and they may not. And it may also be if maybe you come up, maybe one of them's hot, and you come over and just say, "Hi, my name's so and so," and you start like introducing and then all of a sudden you're brought into it because you're someone new, fresh
right?
meat.
And that I can recognize how that's very unnerving to introduce yourself to what seems like a clique or a group of people, and at the same time, like not knowing what the response will be. Because in your imagination, it could go a couple of different ways. It could be that you introduce yourself and they're very warm and they're very welcoming and you get to meet new people and chat and blah, blah, blah. Great. It could be like kind of middle of the road where they're not like necessarily warm, but they're also not rude. Like they don't kind of close rank and file and cut you out. Or the third one is like where they just ignore you and they don't pay any attention. And the last case, then I would be like, yes, bitch is being cliquey and fuck that. Ain't got time for it. But in the event that you actually put yourself out there, and by that I mean like introduce yourself and attempt to talk to them, more often than not, at least the people that I know, the people that I've hung out with, they're actually pretty receptive. Um, and they may not completely open up in this utopian and give you all the hugs and everything in the world, because they don't know you, and that's okay. But also, I just want to say, like, it's a valid concern, but I think more often than not, the concept of people or groups being cliquey is about our own imagination than the reality per se.
It might be more of a thing where it's like they're in the group, they're having fun, and they just haven't taken the action to invite anybody else in. So it's one of those things where you kind of have to like knock on the door. Take a
Well,
wall.
and that's one of the bigger challenges that you end up facing is, especially when you go to an event that you've never been to before, and you're looking at individuals and they're kind of in their own little pockets, whether they're hanging out in a pool or in a corner of the bar, or it's all circumstantial as to what the event is. And especially if you go to a new place that you've never been to, like a new city, whether it be like a bar night or like a one-time event as opposed to a whole weekend of events, it's easy for me, at least, as a person who likes to watch others, to look at the crowd and kind of figure out who the locals are, because they tend to be very relaxed and very comfortable in the space, and they tend to know more people. And so that speaks to me that they are, the not the queens of the roost, so to speak, but that they are well known. And that's good, for them, and that's how they kind of do that thing. In that case, so I think that in terms of the clicky piece, just be aware of your own potential prejudice, I guess is the way I want to say it. And it's not that it's all on you, but I get it, because I've been to events where I've seen people that kind of hang out, and I'd be like, oh, well, they all seem to really know each other well, and but then again, I don't know them. I'm completely observing from the outside, and that's true of a lot of different things. I mean, I've seen, so for instance, at the Bear Midwest Bear Fest in December, when in the past years we've had the Cubs Out Loud kind of like shindig on Thursday, kind of as a meet and greet situation.
Right.
We understandably were kind of trying to host a little party or whatever, but the thing is that people don't necessarily know who we are. So while there's a couple of hosts there and we're, giving out free cookies and talking to folks and doing this weird thing, on our iPhone, and that they don't necessarily know who we are. And so they might be like, oh, they're kind of clicky, like they're doing this podcast thing and blah, blah, blah. That's not our intent. Like, we're just trying to do something a little fun and not necessarily annoy people, because I'm not the type of person that's the one that wants to get in everybody's face.
Yeah.
So I'm just using it as an example of how, like, I could see how even we could be accused of being clicky in a way. And it's like, yeah, well, that's not really what we're trying to do. Like, we're just trying to have fun. And
There's a kind of a difference between clique and group. I'm having trouble saying that. Siri, I didn't say your name at all. Anyways.
Bitch.
But there's a difference between group and clique. Clique is someone who's trying to be exclusionary, and then there's a group where they're just focusing on each other, and doesn't mean that you can't come in and be part of them. It's just their focus hasn't been turned outward is all. Clique is like you approach and then they basically glare and be like, go away. Sort of thing. But I don't think I'm not sure, because I've barely been to any bear event. In fact, I don't really consider that I have been to any bear event. But I think that's basically what you're trying to say, is that just because they're focused on each other doesn't mean they're trying to exclude anybody. It's just they're not actively trying to bring people in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if they're I look at it this way. If they're not like trying to replicate Regina George, and the Mean Girls or the Heathers or whatever, then I don't think
Yeah.
they're actually being cliquey. They're just being a group of people that know each other and chat
Yeah.
together. Go ahead, Damon.
No, I think it's always going to be about. I think we've potentially talked about it. It's a matter of perspective, and sometimes it can be what you're putting on them that you're kind of maybe seeing and fearing. Like, I've gone to many events, and I've gone to events where I felt by myself, and I often had to think about it and pause for a minute and figure out, okay, why is it that way? And I think maybe it's sometimes not necessarily that I'm actually by myself, but maybe I'm seeing like these people over here are doing stuff and hanging out and going off and doing things, and these people over there are going off and doing things, and maybe that's okay. It's okay that they're able to do that, because guess what? There's all these other things going on. Like, you don't have to necessarily do something with someone in order to make it an event for yourself.
Agreed. And I think what's important to know is that your observation is just one aspect. Mm-hmm. So, like, while you're looking at other people doing things, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a reality. Like, it might be real for you, but you only have one side of the situation, so to speak. And that's true about everything in life. I don't know how many times I've heard someone explain something one way, and then other people, say things in different ways. And it's not necessarily the truth or what's happening. So, in case, go ahead, Damon.
I don't know if we've looked at the rest of his comments or not, but the whole, like, you're spending most of the time by yourself or going with people that you went. And I will say this in the nicest way I know how. That's okay too.
Right.
Like, that's all right as a potential, like, virgin. If you are not yet comfortable, like, experiencing other people, then by all means take that little moment to either be by yourself or to go with a crowd of people, because a little bit and you're maybe a little comfortable with other things. So
have fun with your friends.
Mm-hmm. It's okay to go to an event with your friends.
Right. And I think, what Josh was pointing out is, like, he thinks the point of going to an event is to actually attend the event and to meet other people and to hang out with those people, as opposed to spending time by himself. I get that, but I also know people that do that. I mean, in years past, there was a person who had submitted a question about our host hotel facility. They wanted to know what types of TVs that were in the guest rooms, because they wanted to know if they could bring a gaming system. And I will admit, at the time, this was quite a few years ago, the committee's initial response internally, not our response to the person, but internally, was kind of like, why are you bringing a gaming system? Like, the whole point of this event is to be social and to meet other people. That's why we're putting it on. And years later, looking back on it, I get it now. I understand, like, that was probably a personal, like, backup plan, or it was always their intent to, while they're going to this event, they're not going to go to everything or be everywhere. Maybe they, are sensitive to chlorine, so they won't go to the pool functions, but they're fine with doing the other social aspects. So,
and just because he's bringing a gaming system, maybe he's got like 4 controllers, so he's going to invite some people, say, "Hey, want to go play Smash Brothers?"
Right.
Yeah,
and that's not an innuendo.
I mean, maybe it's stripped Smash Brothers, which end up being a innuendo version of Smash Brothers.
Trust me, there could be, like, secret agendas to things by all means. But,
I've never heard of people playing games in hotel guest rooms just so that it turns into an impromptu orgy. Never. Ever.
I'm bringing my magic cards. Are you bringing your magic cards? We can play strip magic.
Yeah. So, just to kind of...
We can play strip cards against humanity. I've got some regular playing cards. Let's play strip poker. There we go. Regular stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Smash Brothers is an innuendo and it's by itself.
Right.
To kind of wrap things up, and I will say, sometimes events will have, and this kind of thing, they will have a virgin's event, social.
Well, they probably won't call it the Virgin.
Actually, they will. So Claw has an actual Claw Virgins group on Facebook. NAB is talking about having like or NAB Virgins events that they're going to schedule. They have like an orientation kind of thing, and they're actually calling them Virgin. And it's okay to, like, if it's your first time or this is your first experiencing of an event, go to those things. Like, you'll be surprised. One, the people you may meet, because obviously there's going to be more than one person that's totally new to this event, and you may have some potential
it's the Virgin group.
Yeah.
Well, and so on that, as we wrap up, like, we did this a couple of years ago with my event. It was the Rocky Horror type theme, and if you know anything about that like cult classic, like the first time you ever go to an actual viewing of the film or a stage production, they like to know who the virgins are, people that have never been there before, and they kind of not brand them, but they put them through a really silly kind of like brief initiation type skit thing in the beginning sometimes. So what we did was we actually did buttons where you either got DF veteran or DF virgin. And it was just meant to be a way to like kind of visually signify who the individuals are that have never been to the event. And what we had asked for was for those that had been there before to be aware, if you spot somebody with like a white button that said DF Virgin, that this person hasn't been here before. So if they seem lost or if they have questions, like, go ahead and feel free to help them out. Like, while you're not necessarily a committee member or a person that organized the event, if you've been coming for years, you might be familiar enough with how the event takes place that you can help contribute, some assistance to a person. And so I think that there's something to be said for that when it comes to the different things that are going on when it comes to events. If there's going to be a population of people that are virgins and haven't been there before, to be aware of that. And then actually one of the things I recognize is that when people who are first timers know that there are other first timers, they kind of create their own group. And so now, like we were talking about, like wallflowers hanging out with wallflowers, now you kind of have virgins hanging out with virgins. And so you're not necessarily alone, and you're having your first time experience with other people who are having their first time experience, so to speak. So that's always an outcome of that. So hope we help kind of answer those or address those items for you, Josh.
If you have any other questions regarding this sort of thing, then I would definitely, send us a question if you got anything with us. If you are planning on going to an event, check out their website, Facebook page, see if there's a virgin group, or maybe they'll just call it newbie or something like that. New person, if they're not trying to be weird. But and see what there is, and try to find out who else is going, so that if anything, you have at least one person or maybe even a group of people that you can kind of meet up with to get all together to do stuff as well. And again, just because there are stuff to do at the event doesn't mean that you have to do them. As we mentioned, somebody might bring a gaming system. Hey, maybe instead of going to the pool party, you guys have a party in your room playing video games or something like that. So, which is perfectly fine. I mean, when you say that the events are meant to be social, there's different ways of being social, and it doesn't necessarily have to be this specific event. So
true. So true.
So
yeah, just social.
Everything is optional. do I just think commit to what you want to do and go with what you're most comfortable with. So the moral to this story, the reason why I don't go to bear events is because I'm not social. I'm not antisocial. I'm just not social. So that explains a whole lot about that. Plus, I'm also broke. So
we will. So
that doesn't help either.
But if you want to help out and do things, you can maybe help us out by becoming a patron or buying some shirts or some lines.
Guess what? Yeah. This is the end. I'm about to get to that. So that's the end. Oh, anyways. There's plenty of ways to contact us to let us know about all this. Just go to cubsoutloud.com. You can also shoot us an email at cubsoutloud@gmail.com. Leave us a voicemail like Ed did, sexy or otherwise, or if you have a little thing you want to pimp, we're good with that too. At 361 COL Talk, that's 361-265-8255. You can follow us on various social media outlets, Instagram, Facebook, Tumblr, Twitter, and YouTube at Cubs Out Loud in the appropriate place of the URL. Obviously, the Cubs Out Loud Tumblr will be very sparse, but still,
I'm still putting stuff on there.
There's still stuff. It's still there. You can also join our Entourage chat and chat up with people. Hey, you can also chat up to see if other people are going to an event that you might be able to meet up as part of the Entourage at tinyurl.com/telegram-col. If you want to know when we are doing these live on YouTube, you can check out our calendar at tinyurl.com/calendar-col, or you can subscribe to that. You can get merchandise such as a Proud Out Loud shirt or a Consent Is My Foreplay, which we don't just have in Bear's the Bear Paw, but we also have Leather and Pup as well. You can also become a patron at patreon.com/cubsoutloud. Thank you to all your patrons. We just got paid this past week for that. We really do appreciate that, mainly because I know that our hosting costs for the website are coming up soon, and it will be an immense help for me because I'm the one that pays that. Now
the show does.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's one of the reasons you're going to keep the website and everything going if you help out with that. You can also subscribe to us through iTunes, Google Play, and of course give us a thumbs up on Stitcher Radio. You can find us find me anywhere on the internet as Boxcat, Box Puppy, Box Cub, Box something or other. And I do have a Box Cub is my XXX Twitter account. I haven't really done too much on there, but recently, within the past month, I have retweeted a few things.
Here or there, something like that, something along those lines. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you wish to reach out to me, you can find me as TheaterCub79 on most Bear sites or Facebook, or you can find me at pup_umbra on the Twitters.
If you would like to get in touch with me, you can pretty much find me online as GaryBear73. If you want to follow my naughty stuff on Twitter, it's GaryBear73XXX. And I apologize. I'll try to remember in a couple of weeks to give recognition. Someone sent me a message a while ago complimenting about the podcast, and so I'll give them a shout out appropriately later.
Yay!
Yay! And hey, that's usually when we do our What's Going On. So, yeah. Anyways. And with that, say good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Have a good one, y'all. There's the urinals. I need to use one of those. I'll be right back.
Oh my God. Okay. So
we are still live, by the way.
I know, but still. So I want to apologize for the sudden, like, if you heard the loud, like, siren going off on my microphone, something has happened to our alarm system and we can't fix it. So we have to have someone come in and fix it. So, yay! That won't happen until Wednesday. I don't know what it is, and Jim was on the phone with them, so I will have to talk to him about it. But That's why I was on mute for most of near the end of the call, because it was like loud sound and then disarm, but still problems. And when you armed it, it kept going. So, yeah. So, but we stopped it for now, and as you obviously can hear, that it's not going on. But I'll figure out what's going on from there. Always fun for random things to happen randomly.
So no immediate issues. Like it's not like someone was legitimately trying to break into your house while you're podcasting.
Exactly. No immediate issues. Just like, what the hell? Because I know the system was disarmed because I had went out to go get the newspaper,
right?
And I was like, okay, well, and then since both of us are here, I don't arm it. But all of a sudden, sounds and noise and no way of knowing what the hell's going on, and still don't technically know what's going on. So
maybe there was a bird that flew into a window. I don't know.
I don't know. It wasn't. So we have so many. It wasn't something that I was aware of. It was something, and I'll hear from Jim to see what he had to say because he talked with the people. Right. But I'm going to apparently be working from home on Wednesday, which wasn't part of the plan. But if they're going to come in, someone has to be here. So anyway, with that, I am going to pop off here.
Cool. You're good for tonight?
Yes. We're 6-ish.
Yeah.
6. Okay. Yes, that should be fine. Ooh, why am I in April? Yes. Yeah, that should be fine. We're going to be missing people gaming tonight anyway, so I have to get all that together before I step outside. Jim's apparently out there, so.
I'm going to stop streaming.